Now it's time for Lefties Losing It, and let's take a look at the Grammys. They were just on, though no one with a life seems to care too much, but we had an assortment of Lefties Losing It. So let's have a look at the top 5. Now, while much of the attention was on the tacky exhibitionist antics of Kanye and his Australian wife, Bianca Censori, it was the usual suspects with their TDS afflictions that sought to turn a night about music into one about politics. Let's start with an award that was nakedly political. Giving Beyonce the best country album is just pure politics. She's about as country as she is a natural blonde. Even she looked embarrassed by this award.
Cowboy Carter, Beyonce.
Not expecting this.
Yeah, we're all shocked. And no one who actually listens to and loves country music takes that seriously, because whether you love her album or not, it ain't country, folks. Now, coming in at number 4 in the Grammys Lefties Losing It list is Shakira, who couldn't help but virtue signal in a most vacuous and unnecessary fashion.
I want to dedicate this award to all my immigrant brothers and sisters in this country. You're loved, you're worth it, and I will always fight with you.
She will always fight with us? Why? What do we do, Shakira? Imagine being so out of touch that you miss that Latina voters, Hispanic voters supported Trump in enormous numbers, or being so thick that you conflate illegal immigration with legal immigration. Not a single legal migrant is facing deportation or needs to be told by a Colombian songstress that they are loved. Now to the number 3 position, and it goes to a queer singer. That's what she calls herself. I've never heard of her, but she did win Best New Artist, and of course she had to mouth off about the LGBTQIA++ community and what she calls trans joy.
Trans people have always existed and they will forever exist, and they will never, no matter what happens, take trans joy away, and that has to be protected more than anything, because I would not be here without trans girls. So just know that pop music is thinking about you and cares about you.
Coming in at number 2 is another activist who has long been vocal in her support for the Democrats, who has urged Americans to vote for Hillary, vote for Biden and Kamala, and who is a single woman with little idea of the national divorce happening in the LGBTQ community, where many LGB folk are saying goodbye to the TQ activist. Here is Lady Gaga telling trans people that they're not invisible. No kidding.
Trans people are not invisible. Trans people deserve love. The queer community deserves to be lifted up. Music is love. Thank you.
And the number 1 lefty losing it at the Grammys is Alicia Keys. You'll remember her. She had to apologise, or should that be clarify, her questionable post about a paraglider whilst dressed in Palestinian colours just a few days after October 7. And who can forget her posing in a burqa like it's some high fashion item at a time where Muslim women in countries like Iran are risking their lives fighting against such garments. So let's hear what Alicia had to say at the Grammys. I'm sure this is going to be riveting.
This is not the time to shut down the diversity of voices. We've seen on this stage talented, hardworking people from different backgrounds with different points of view, and it changes the game. DEI is not a threat, it's a gift. And the more voices, the more powerful the sound. When destructive forces try to burn us down, we rise from the ashes like a phoenix.
DEI is not a threat, it's a gift. No, DEI is neo-Marxist lunacy. It's racism and sexism dressed up as false tolerance, and it has no place in a free society where people should be judged on their character and skills, not factors they have zero control over, like their gender, race, ethnicity. As for the diversity on the stage Alicia Keys talked about, name one artist who performed or was honoured with an award who represents the majority of Americans who voted for Trump. Far from being an example of diverse voices, the music industry, like Hollywood, is full of out-of-touch, privileged idiots. An industry that is among the most closed-minded, bigoted and divorced from reality. You are in no position to lecture anyone about anything. Let's hear now from a member of the LGBTQIA++ community.
Yesterday, I had the absolute audacity to say, I don't care how many executive orders you sign, you still don't get to tell me who I am. Yesterday, I had the absolute audacity of saying, I don't care if you're elected to the highest station in the world, you still don't get to tell me who I am.
Let me have the audacity to tell you no one cares who you are or how you identify as long as you don't impose your delusions on us. Unless you compel the rest of us to call you what you identify as, what we know you are not, or give you access to our female-only areas, well, you be you. Just leave me out of it. There'll be plenty more Lefties Losing It content with my next guest. And my word, there has been a meltdown over USAID funding being cut, USAID. Every rent-seeking lefty is up in arms. Here is Jamie Raskin railing against Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, you didn't create USAID. The United States Congress did for the American people. And just like Elon Musk did not create USAID, he doesn't have the power to destroy it. And who's going to stop him? We are. We're going to stop him.
And hysterical squad member Ilan Omar is also losing her teeny tiny mind over USAID.
We are witnessing a constitutional crisis. We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are. This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like.
Oh dear, Elon, that is not a dictatorship. This is a president with a mandate imposing the policies he's duty-bound to impose. So what sort of vital funding are they so disturbed about being cut? Let's hear from Caroline Levitt, White House Press Secretary, about some of the examples where US taxpayers are spending money for US aid to do what?
If you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either.
And let's hear from the man himself, the leader of the free world, POTUS, about who is running USAID these days.
Well, it's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
Joining me now is Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, radical lunatics, I love it. This is becoming a big issue, but I do wonder whether the Democrats really want to defend the maddest spending of USAID, because the more we hear about these items, whether it's $35,000 for this or $5 million for that, it's hard to see how this is in the interests of the American taxpayer.
This story has become, I think, the biggest story of the week, and it was really unexpected. Most people were never thinking about USAID to this level before, and Trump is just so good at taking things that are big issues and putting them in the forefront and changing the national discourse. USAID was after there is a statutory law behind it that Congress passed, but then JFK created the agency in 1961. Like anything, it's creeped far away from its original mission. It's about $43 billion a year going into all sorts of those DEI and productions and museums and all those things that we heard about. It's not advancing the interest. There's even more nefarious things like funding gain-of-function research potentially in Wuhan and meddling in other countries' internal affairs, fronted through money laundering. There's all sorts of things coming out of it. And the fact that all those leaders took to the streets to protest, Jamie Raskin and Ilhan Omar, is very curious for just the dismantling or reorging of an agency. I wouldn't have expected to see them rallying for that, so there must be more underneath it.
And you've just got to wonder about the political judgment of the Democrats right now. Sure, they're in the wilderness, but you've got to start the rebuild, and you've got to start it straight away. And clutching to these sorts of issues seems ill-advised. Now, the New York Post is reporting that US aid workers received an email Monday telling them to stay out of the agency's DC headquarters as Elon Musk and the White House moved to shut it down and reorganise it under the State Department. So that is an important point to consider, that it may not be gone and buried forever. It is being reimagined, perhaps in the vision that they originally had, which was to advance US interests. This was at a time of the Cold War, and like you say, it's veered far, far away from those objectives.
And those types of measures fall within the purview of the executive branch, and this is what we're seeing every 6 hours. There's a new action coming out of Team Trump he is really wielding the weight of the executive branch, where even if there's a statutory premise to it around foreign assistance, which is what Jamie Raskin was talking about, the way it is administered is in his purview. And if he wants to put it back under the State Department, so it's more aligned with Marco Rubio's execution of the Trump policy, then that's his prerogative. If they want to shut down certain aspects, if they want to lock out people and change who's administering it, that's all in their purview. But this seems to just be the beginning, and I think it's going to get more heated.
I am loving some of these emails being leaked that are going to staff members, just advising them how they can resign, how they can go about just removing themselves from the bureaucracy. Now let's check in with the DNC and see if they've moved on from their DEI race obsessions.
Racism has not gone away since 20 people of African descent came upon these shores at Jamestown, Virginia in 1619, and it's going to require us to think and behave in a new way. It is systemic, it is structural when it comes to addressing diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging.
Kosha, they just do not learn. They seem to be incapable of moving away from their identity politics obsessions, talking about systematic racism, 1619. Have they just failed to see where the American people are now, that they don't want these racial division forced down their throat?
Mm-hmm. That lot certainly seems to lack the political judgment that you just mentioned. They're out in the wilderness, and they keep going back to 1619 and DEI and all these buzzwords that the other side is at rapid speed completely dismantling. They didn't talk at all about immigration and inflation, where the majority of the public, 55% of the public wants. There's actually a level of unification around these issues that didn't exist even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That is where they should be going, and come up with maybe some policy substantive differences to things that are controversial, like tariffs or something else. That would have been better than singing the DEI song sheet, but it just seems to be such a potent strain in the party that for some reason, even if they know, and there are talented people in the party, they just can't seem to excise it.
Now, let's have a bit of fun. I did a whole bit about the Grammys and Lefties Losing It, but the enduring chat from the Grammys appears to be around Beyonce's country music win. That's caused a bit of a furore, as well as Kanye West and his Australian wife, Bianca Censori. What do you make of that disparity There is so much chatter about whether she's being victimized, is she being used and objectified by Kanye West. People are saying she needs to be committed because no sane person would be humiliating themselves on a regular basis like this. She certainly doesn't seem to be happy about whatever is happening. What's your take on this? Because when you talk about the culture, this is an issue that has really gained traction this week.
It's hard to know, and you're right, she did look rather uncomfortable on that. So it's a spectrum of possibilities because who knows what happened behind the scenes there. Is it that there's some sort of power dynamic in that relationship and she was in some way pressured or coaxed into doing a publicity stunt? Did it maybe come from her own volition? Did she do it in that way because you know that you're going to generate headlines around the world? We're talking about it right now, and that mantra, no such thing as bad publicity. Is it a sign of just shock and awe that you just want to do something to really start some kind of conversation? Who knows where it stands on that, but it is a degeneracy and just a sign of the culture not being where it needs to be.
I think the word there is degeneracy. There is. This is supposed to be the Grammys. It's supposed to be a prestigious night where you celebrate the best in the music industry, and you have full frontal nudity. So, and it's kids who are really interested in the Grammys. I don't know too many adults who are just hanging on to see who wins Album of the Year, but it's the young kids, and they're the ones who are seeing that. So it really does question, where is the culture at when it comes to Hollywood, the music industry, the celebrity class. Now let's move back to politics. Joe Biden may be making a move to Hollywood, signing on with a new agent. New York Post is reporting that Biden has made his first known move to monetize his post-presidency. He's going to be represented by Creative Artists Agency, quite a big player. And the talent agency comes as insiders speculate on how the Biden family is now going to be making money. We know they reaped millions of dollars from foreign deals and some dubious Ivy League arrangements. This is an interesting signing. I can't imagine what he would want to be. Is he going to do some sort of a project with Netflix? Is he going to be an artist? Why would he sign with him?
And Hunter Biden has some experience in that realm, as we know. It is odd because on the face of it, it's so absurd. Yeah. And we all can see that, and we sort of have to go along with it because it is an admission of how the presidency in the day and age that we live in is monetized. It's a commercial asset, and it did not used to be this way, but all presidents now.
The Obamas were the masters
of it, and they all monetize it through speeches and writing gigs and books and those kinds of things. The Obamas went further into the entertainment world with a massive Netflix deal, and they've done like 24 films. But they do have charisma, they do have a following, the Obamas. You could, even if you know that there's influence that's being bought and sold here, you can, on the face of it, see why they are a talent that CAA would want to represent. With Biden, just his age, not glamorous, not charismatic, it's just hard to see him.
Not coherent.
And not coherent.
The man's not cognitively sound.
Yes.
That's the biggest. How is he, or who is going to be representing him here?
So it's clear that it's so obvious that it's not about the content he's going to be putting out, but it's about the influence that he still has, and that's what they're going to buy.
He's still the product. We said all along when it came to Hunter Biden and his dubious business dealings, Biden was the product, and he still seems to be the product. Now, we've seen a pause on the tariffs that are to be imposed on Canada and Mexico. Kosha, tell me about what happened there. Was this just a tactic for Donald Trump to get what he wanted? He threatens tariffs, announces them, and then these leaders do what he's asked them to do.
Within hours.
Within hours. We've seen this now several times. And how long can he use this strategy? Because surely they're smart enough to eventually work out what's happening here.
So I think it's two things. On one level, it is just a tactic where he threatens them. Within hours, they capitulate. It's usually relating to take back your illegals, pay for their plane flights, fortify the border, things like that. And then he'll put a 30-day pause to make sure that they actually follow through with what they've promised, and if not, he'll threaten it again. But I also think that underneath that, he looks at it as an economic policy, like a genuine one. because the U.S., big picture, is about 4% of the world's population and about 25% of consumption. It's the most desirable consumer market in the world. So that is a really big asset that he believes, even if it leads to price increases for Americans in the short run, it just rebalances trade in a good way. And I think he really believes that. And with some countries like China and others, he might push it on its own merits, whereas with these countries, it might be just a tactic to get them to.
Absolutely, and it's not always the threat of tariffs. He's also sent some diplomats down to Venezuela and has got agreement from that country to take back their violent criminals, including gang members. Another big win for Donald Trump this week. Kosher Gator, thanks for your time.